This is a breaking news broadcast. There has been a massive development when it comes to the Air India 171 probe. This development actually relates to a defect reported by a pilot on a 7878, the same model that crashed, that was in operation in Air India 171. We all remember these images. And we have all been awaiting the final report into what caused this crash. There has also been a smear campaign against the pilot of the plane, Captain Sumit Sabharwal. Sumit has been accused in sections of the Western media like Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg of deliberately moving the fuel control switch of this plane from run to cut-off mode, thereby causing the plane to crash. The preliminary probe report made a summarized but not verbatim reference to a conversation about the fuel control switches allegedly taking place in the cockpit of the plane that went down. But now let me come to the breaking news. And this is a massive, massive, massive development that, in my opinion, actually changes everything. It changes the way we're going to be looking at the same crash. On the 1st of February, a pilot operating an Air India 7878 flight from London to Bangalore suddenly found that the fuel control switch was not locking properly. In fact, sources say that twice he tried to move it and found that it was moving on its own, or he tried to lock it, I beg your pardon, and found it was moving or sliding on its own and moving on its own from run to cutoff. Why is this so important? Well, it is so important because Captain Sumit Sabharwal has been accused in section of the Western media and by a whisper campaign of having done exactly this, thereby causing the plane to crash. His ailing father, whom you see in these images, 91-year-old Pushkar Raj Sabharwal, is in the Supreme Court saying that the probe panel, the AIB's preliminary report, has got it all wrong. It's full of innuendo. That members of this panel came to meet him on the pretext of condoling and then started basically blaming his son for carrying out a suicide murder mission. Well, a number of experts, and you've seen all the coverage on this platform, have been saying that most likely there was an electrical failure on this plane and that the fuel control switches, and we can go back and show you what a fuel control switch actually looks like, were most likely never physically moved. That this has been the opinion of many, many experts on our platform. However, we now have this concrete development. We have this concrete development wherein on the same model, 7878, a pilot has reported a defect in the fuel control switch, and the defect is precisely what is alleged to have happened deliberately on Air India 171, i.e., that the fuel control switch moved from run to cut-off mode. I want to introduce our two experts on the program today to explain to us the importance of what we now know has happened on a London-Bangalore flight. Captain Amit Singh of the Safety Matters Foundation is with us. He's the first person who flagged that this had happened. He's also one of the petitioners in the Supreme Court. And also joining us is Captain Sam Thomas, who's, of course, who's the president of ALPA India, a major pilots association. Captain Amit Singh, I'll start with you and we'll try and explain this simply. In the Air India 171 case, basically, Sumit Sabharwal was accused in certain quarters of having deliberately moved the fuel control switch from run to cut off, causing the plane to crash. With what has happened on the flight that operated from London to Bangalore, and I should say that the pilot was able to eventually lock the switch properly and the plane landed without any mishap, any accidents, any casualties. And, Air India has confirmed this and said that this particular plane has been grounded for further investigations. But it changes the way we should be looking at the Air India 171 crash, doesn't it? Can you explain the importance of the discovery?
So we'll have to go back to the 2018 FAA Safety Information Bulletin that SIB said that on the 737s, there is a possibility that this engagement switch may not hold the fuel control switch in the run position and it may slide to the cutoff position. So that could be a possibility, and then goes on to say that 787 may also be affected. But this is given to all operators worldwide. Air India decides not to implement it because they say it is just information, recommendation. not mandatory, and probably they do only bare minimum things required to comply with the regulations. Safety is normally proactive. You do something more over and above what is required on the baseline. Now, what is remotely possible has happened. Even Boeing would not have thought of. But now the whole development of Air India 171 has changed. The investigation needs to expand their role to the possibility of this switch having moved uncommanded and move away from their presumed the probable theory of the pilot acting on the fuel control switches. So now they have got some credible information that it is possible. Earlier, they did not have any technical information to base their hypothesis, so they were going for the human factor. Now there is another technical issue which has come up, so they need to look at it broadly over a number of things which can happen or not happen. So extremely in safety, we say we have a matrix. In the matrix, we have things which are improbable, which is possibility of one event having incident in over a million flight hours, but the consequence could be catastrophic. So even though it is improbable but catastrophic, so we take it seriously. But did Air India issue any communication to the crew that this is a SIB? It may not be possible, but you must be aware of it. And this is the SOP for that, or the crew action in case it happens. Because in the Boeing manuals, there is always a chapter of abnormal behavior, that your selected altitude may change inadvertently. It is not happening anytime, but improbable situation. But the pilot is made aware. So everything is about communication. Like MCAS was not disclosed, a lot of things are not disclosed probably. So this
Yeah.
is the whole issue with Boeing and with the investigation of 171 per se.
Yeah, I think that's very well put. But let me get Captain Thomas in. We have these. Oops, can you hear me, Captain? I think somebody's phone is ringing. If I could request you to put your mobile phone away. Yeah, Captain Singh, if you could just turn your mobile phone off. Let me bring in Captain Thomas in now. Captain Thomas, there have been two schools of thought when it comes to the Air India 171 crash. One has been experts like Amit, like yourself, like others, and we've spoken to experts from around the world that have spoken about the possibility of an electrical failure, something catastrophic in the plane that led to an uncommanded action. By uncommanded, something the pilots didn't do, something that happened on the plane. And then there has been the preliminary probe report submitted by the AAIB that basically, by innuendo, seemed to suggest that the captain, the commander of the plane, Sumit Sabharwal, deliberately turned the switch, the fuel control switch, from run to cut off. Now you juxtapose this, and if we can please also bring up the press release by Amit's Foundation Safety Matters, it has a very long documentation of what happened on this London Bangalore flight. And basically, what we know is that the pilot reported a defect in this fuel control switch, and the pilot reported that he found it difficult to lock the switch, and the switch was moving on its own from run to cut off mode. In my opinion, it changes everything. And as Captain Amit Singh has said, the probe panel will now has documented technical evidence that an uncommanded action with the fuel control switch is a very real possibility. And all of those people who were so confident that the pilot has done this deliberately are going to have to really explain their certainty and their certitude at this point. Captain Thomas?
Ma'am, good evening. Captain Amit has put it up so eloquently in a scientific manner. I'll try and do it for the common man, and I'll refrain from repeating whatever he has said.
Yeah.
Now just look at the preliminary report. There are two things in the preliminary report. One is giving a clean chit prematurely to Boeing. That was one shocker, which was not even necessary. Now, the second thing is now try to take even the bit of conversation which was posted in the preliminary report, which said, did you do it? No, I didn't do it. Now, when you put this incident and look at that statement, it's a true statement, even if it's a part of a statement. So that is the reason why we are saying that the present AAIB does not have the technical expertise even to go near the investigation of this accident. So now everything changes. Now, what are you going to say? Are you going to retract whatever you have mentioned earlier? So, and let me put it on record to say that we've got calls from pilots around the world. This is the third incident, actually, when we were saying also that the fuel control switches, we have flown similar aircraft. We can't believe that with that locking system, this fuel control switches can go to cut off inadvertently.
Yeah.
So now, when we had one report, we had second report. Now the third person, Air India pilot himself, called us and said, "Hey, this happened to me. This happened to a colleague of ours. This is authentic, and it's a direct kind of confirmation that we are getting." So now we again reiterate that whatever you try to nail the pilot with, we will challenge this in court one by one. We don't believe in all of us getting into a legal kind of war with the same issue. So what we are saying now, come what may, we will challenge whatever you put out in this one, because we know you are going in the wrong direction and we have reason to believe it, and you have reason to believe it post this particular incident, ma'am.
Yeah. Captain Amit Singh, can you actually explain, this is for people who may not know, basically the fuel control switch, the preliminary probe report created this deliberate, some say ambiguity, some say the ambiguity was created because of a lack of competence, who knows. But there was a reference to a conversation, an alleged conversation in the cockpit, wherein one pilot says to the other, and it's assumed that Captain Clive says to Captain Sumit, "Did you turn off this switch?" And he actually denies it and says, "No, I did not." But we do not have the transcript even in that preliminary probe report. Now you juxtapose that with what has happened on the 1st of February with the London-Bangalore 7878 Boeing flight. And I want to stress Boeing, because I believe that the clean sheet given to Boeing in the AIA by AAIB preliminary report was premature, possibly premature. Juxtapose it with this development. What changes?
See, that vague statement, paraphrased, does not mention the fuel control switch, but it is placed in such a way that people assume that it is the fuel control switch.
Did you turn it off? In fact, I can't read this, but I want to read out what the preliminary probe. Is there a way to go full frame to it so I can just read it out for a second? Could you? Yeah. Okay, Amit, keep going. We'll have it pop up on our screen soon. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is basically the way they have placed it, or the sequence in which they have placed
so
it.
it says, sir, let me just read it out. In the cockpit voice recording, one of the pilots is heard asking the other, "Why did he cut off?" The other pilot responded, "He did not do so." So you're right. And usse pehle they've written, the aircraft achieved the maximum record airspeed of 180 knots, and immediately thereafter the engine. You'll have to hold that for me to be able to read it, please. The aircraft achieved the maximum record airspeed of 180 knots. It goes on to say, immediately thereafter, the engine 1 and engine 2 fuel cutoff switches transitioned from run to cutoff one after the other with a time gap of 1 second. And then it goes on to say, in the cockpit voice recording, one of the pilots is heard asking the other, "Why did he cut off?" The other pilot responded, "He did not do so." Now, Captain Amit, if I can come back to you, we can come out of this and come back to Captain Amit and Captain Thomas. Even till 2 days ago, Bloomberg reported saying investigators are coming around to the opinion that the pilot did this deliberately, with a missing transcript, missing timestamp of exactly when the rat deployed. We've had other experts look at the fact that given the timestamps that are available, the rat simply could not have deployed within 3 seconds, and that's the margin within which it would have had to start supplying backup power and so on. Now tell us, joining the dots of what's happened with this particular incident, the London-Bangalore flight, where the fuel control switches have not locked and have locked reportedly at third try, and connected to what the preliminary probe report was insinuating, and make sense of it for our audience.
So now the whole tilt is towards a technical failure instead of
Yeah.
what we were presuming, or uh, people were insinuating that it was a human error or a human moved the switches. Now it is
Yeah.
purely technical issue. On the technical issue, you can probe the electrical failure, or now the new feature or the fault, which is the switch moving uh, without any pressure or little pressure, which means the locking mechanism has given way, which Boeing itself had admitted is a possibility. So these two possibilities, which Boeing itself had admitted, electrical issues have happened in the past. Boeing was grounded because of electrical issue, battery fires,
Yeah.
and this. So now the whole probe has to take uh, this into consideration and connect it with why the rear EAFR, the black box, got burned so badly, whereas it was not in fire. Why did the emergency locator transmitter not function
Yeah.
in the first place? And they have to retract or issue an update, which they had promised that in due course we will issue an update of the new facts which emerge. The new facts are there in front of you. So
Yeah.
AIB needs to come out and give a statement that new facts have emerged and the probe will look into it. So there has to be some assurance given to the public, or at most they are duty bound to give it to the families of those who have lost their lives. So this
Absolutely.
basic minimum they have to do.
Captain Thomas, I'm just going to read out the official Air India response to what has happened. I'd be very curious to see a response from Boeing. Air India statement says, we are aware that one of our pilots has reported a possible defect on the fuel control switch of a Boeing 787 aircraft. After receiving this initial information, we have grounded the said aircraft and are involving the OEM to get the pilot's concerns checked on a priority basis. The matter has been communicated to the aviation regulator, the DGCA. Air India had checked the fuel control switches on all Boeing 787 aircraft in its fleet after a directive from the DGCA. This is after the crash, and had found no issues. At Air India, the safety of our passengers and crew remains top priority. Again, because we don't want to create panic, the plane did land safely. At third attempt, reportedly, the pilot was able to lock the control switch as it was meant to. But as Captain Amit Singh said, there has been an uncommanded action on this plane. On this plane, meaning London, Bangalore. And it's quite likely that this crash, the images of which we're seeing on our screen, could have been a consequence of the same uncommanded action, because it's the same thing that the AIB's preliminary report claims happened, that the fuel control switch moved or transitioned from run to cutoff. On this London Bangalore flight, we've seen that they can actually transition on their own.
Correct, ma'am. Now it's a case of deja vu for us, because somehow Boeing is blissfully unaware of whatever happens on their aircraft. Uncommanded rudder movement, uncommanded rudder reversal. These were cases in the 90s. Thereafter, somebody came and had to tell them that, look, your rudder is moving on its own and doesn't come back. Then there was a case of MCAS. Nobody knew what that was. They did not bother to even let the pilots know that a system like this existed. Now, I don't see anything new. My question is, when we Indian pilots are telling that this is a case, we are not taken seriously. While it takes, thanks to you, you brought in the American experts, a lawyer, I think 2 lawyers you had brought in, and they very clearly, categorically said that there is a good possibility that there is a technical glitch to this than just pilot error. Now, once again, what we'd like to say is we are in favor of transparent investigation. We are not here merely to block or rather defend the pilot. We are not looking at that. We will do, it's our duty, our solemn duty, to defend the pilot till our last breath. But having said that, we want complete transparent investigation, so that always an investigation, there is a lot to learn. That is why we do not make a mistake, so that we don't make a mistake going forward. So once again, our demand would be, make a transparent investigation, involve a lot of experts. Presently, what is happening is we are not even allowed to go anywhere close to the investigation. and categorically told that our constitution does not allow induction of subject matter experts, despite it being contrary to the fact, because the constitution of AIB does allow that. Somehow, we that's leading people to think rather that there is more to hide than to expose at this particular time. Therefore, once again, we demand that there be a complete transparent investigation. Use subject matter experts. You cannot decipher what is happening. This is a highly complicated airplane. So please take heed, forget the egos, keep it aside. We will step aside. You bring in foreign experts, no problem. And also, if you remember, the two people who are sort of justifying this and preempting the pilot induced accident is Bloomberg and Wall Street Journal. Please
Yeah.
tell me, are they getting their information from? Are they part of the investigation? If they are, why were we kept away from that? I mean, what is so special about them? Because they have been lying, and I don't know if they can be prosecuted in India for this, because this is deliberately pushing the investigating agencies in the wrong direction. I'm sure they won't fall for it, but then they're two powerful organizations, and the public is misled into believing that Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg are the ultimate investigating agencies. That's what we would like you, ma'am, to sort of contest.
I want to get last comments from both of you on what should happen now in the face of this information. I'll start with you, Captain Thomas, and then give Amit the last word. When I met the father of Captain Sumit Sabharwal, again, it was heartbreaking for me to meet him. This 91-year-old man. We can show you those pictures if we can now. He said one thing to me through tears. He said, "It's not about my son." He said it's about the safety of the flying public, because you should know that when you get onto the plane the next time, you are flying something that is safe. Boeing also has a record, a reputational problem. It is admitted before the US Congress, the US Senate, on its errors. It has tried to pay its way through that with fines. We have, of course, the MCAS situation where a Lion airplane crashes, the pilot is blamed. It takes an Ethiopian air crash of the same model to discover that there's a software problem on the plane that the pilots are not aware of. Horrible deja vu. My question to you, Captain Thomas, is what should happen now? Sumit's father, Amit, they're already in the Supreme Court saying, scrap this AAIB probe, start again with a Supreme Court monitored independent probe. We now actually have proof that can be placed before the Supreme Court, technical, concrete, documented proof that something uncommanded can happen and did happen with the fuel control switches on the same model. What, according to you, should happen now? Do you believe the current probe panel has to be scrapped?
Absolutely, ma'am. First of all, we are an emotional set of people in India, and Airline Pilots Association of India would thank you immensely for that act of just going and meeting Captain Sabharwal's father. And it was a very touching gesture, had nothing to do with the investigation, but a small act like that goes a long way in assuring the pilot community that, hey, at least we haven't lost our humanity. As far as the technical competence of AAIB, from day one, I have not changed my view on them. I have not changed my view on their technical expertise. Therefore, scrap them, scrap the investigation, start new, take whatever experts you can, Indian, foreign, doesn't matter, get to the bottom of this. We will fight till the end, no matter what the initial decision is. We will fight till the end to clear the name of our fallen colleague.
Captain Amit Singh, somebody who knew Sumit and hasn't been able to come on record because he's a serving employee of one of the airlines. He called me and he said, this development, it feels like Sumit and the family and all of those who died on board that plane have found a way to communicate with us before the next hearing of the Supreme Court. And I found that very moving. You're a petitioner in that case. You're going to have to take this piece of evidence, and it is hard, technical, documented evidence. And look, planes have been, I know there are 1,200 of these planes around the world. I know that it's going to be a knock to aviation briefly or temporarily if they get grounded for further checks. But we've had experts on this show, on this platform, and you've been with them, who say that just like happened with the Max, you've got to ground these planes till you run checks. Air India says it ran checks. It's not just Air India. Airlines around the world ran checks on these 7878 planes when the crash happened. Everybody gave Boeing a clean chit. In the light, in the light of what has happened on this London Bangalore flight, this problem with the fuel control switch, what should happen to the 787 fleet and what should happen to the probe panel?
So look, the basic problem is this is a very complex aircraft and nobody has knowledge. If you say that all the airlines globally ran checks, so who gave the checks? What to do in the checks? Boeing gave it to them. It is not that they developed their own mechanism. Boeing said, you do this, do this, do this. And they did it and they found it okay. So we cannot, everything is coming from Boeing. We need an independent regulator who has the capacity, knowledge, wherewithal to independently assess. I give you an example of MCAS. Entire globe, nobody knew about MCAS except Brazil. I've seen that document. They have an operational evaluation board because they build aircraft, manufacture aircraft. So FAA and the Brazilian authorities combined, and they said that, okay, the pilots need to be trained on MCAS. So the only country which was training on
Did
MCAS
we just lose
was
Captain Amit? Captain Thomas, are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Captain Thomas, are you able to hear me? Okay, let's bring Captain Thomas in. I thought it was my connection, but I think it's Captain Amit Singh. So let me ask you while he reconnects. What do you think? You said that the probe panel must be scrapped. What do you expect? Do you expect the government to respond? Do you expect the DGCA to respond? Do you expect the ministry to respond? Who do you think is going to?
No. You can carry on, Sam.
I'm not able to hear the complete part of that question, ma'am. However, I know what you're asking. I have said what I have to say, and it's just that our main contention is if you want to hide this thing from everybody, fine. At least keep it transparent with the pilots. At least tell me what I should do. Give me a procedure. First, admit to the pilots that this thing is happening. This is a reality. And give me an AMOC procedure. Give me a procedure that I can deal with it. In the air, it's just me and my colleague sitting there. All of you are sitting on the ground and talking about this incident. Up in the air, it's just me and my colleagues. So for the sake of the passengers, for the sake of the safety of flying in India, do let us know what we need to do if we come up with this. At least that, till such time. I won't tell you to take a radical step of grounding this airplane, though that's probably a good thing to do. But I understand commercial considerations outweigh flight safety in a lot of places. But so all I can say is please give us at least that much. Please let us know what, firstly, admit to us that there is a problem. Secondly, if the problem crops up, do let me know what I should do so that I can safely bring the airplane, to help me bring this airplane safely down to any runway possible. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, I had a little bit of a technical problem there. I hope that you guys kept the conversation going. Captain Amit Singh, let me give you the last word. Who has to intervene to change the direction of the probe panel if they don't do it themselves?
See, the probe panel has to be independent, autonomous. That is the requirement of ICAO as per Annex 13. Right now, the probe panel is under the Ministry of Civil Aviation. We haven't heard a single statement from the AIB chief. We have heard plenty from the minister. So who's driving the investigation? Is he leading the investigation by announcing certain things? Like even in the Baramati case, he came and said that weather could be an issue. So these are all leading statements for AIB, giving them direction that you work on this. So they have to be independent. They should not be reporting to the ministry. That is when transparency will come, because they have the power. Rule 12 is what we are insisting on. Rule 12 is a court of inquiry which is open. Experts can come in. ICAO says in case of a big aircraft accident, the AIB in the state will be overwhelmed. they will not be in a position to investigate the complexities and the scale. So that is why experts are required not only from the state but outside the state who can help in the investigation. Ultimately, we have to find out the root cause so that another one cannot happen. Here we are doing an in-house investigation, closed door, and things are cropping up, like these issues are coming up, but there is nobody to answer. I have written so many emails, nobody's responded to the emails. Are they looking at the emails or not? We don't know. So that trust is not there. Leave everything aside. Just follow your own rules. Your own rule says in case of a major catastrophic accident, there has to be a court of inquiry. For a small aircraft, it is a closed door, which is happening in Baramati, Rule 11. There has been precedents. I have taken out cases from 1972 till date. All major accidents have been investigated by High Court or Supreme Court judges, even uh, sitting judges. Justice Lahoti, the Charki Dadri crash, Mangalore crash by an air marshal. So the idea is to have everything in the open so that we can contribute. Transparency is what IQ wants. Transparency is what the
So
people
can I
want.
ask you both? Can I ask you both? Because I briefly lost my own network and I didn't hear what you both said. Do both of you believe that it is time worldwide for airlines to put the 787-8 on the ground till further checks are run in the light of this fuel control switch problem reported on the exact same model that crashed, so tragically seconds after takeoff? Captain Thomas, do you believe that that moment is here, or what do you think? Again, I don't want to cause alarm, but we can't have Boeing just arm twist, passengers, the flying public, the airlines, and that has happened before when they have tried to blame the pilot and it's turned out to be their own defects. Captain Thomas?
Ma'am, as I mentioned earlier, I wouldn't go and take a radical step like that, because we all know that commercial interests are paramount for a lot of operators, a lot of countries, a lot of OEMs.
Yes.
What we are saying is that that would be the ideal scenario. If I were to be the person in charge, I would order the grounding of these airplanes. But I know that's not practical. So
So
irrespective
what
of
should
what the
happen?
problem,
So if we're not grounding the planes for checks, because this particular plane which reported this defect has been grounded for further checks. Another plane of the same model has crashed so tragically with allegedly the same problem, except that it was blamed on the pilot. If you believe you won't take such an extreme step, what would you do? What would you urge? I mean, the first thing I would look for is the AIIB to come and make a statement saying there is now new information. We will be looking at this and we are changing the focus of our probe given the fact that these new facts are before us. That's the very least
that
that should
yes,
happen,
that would
Captain
be
Thomas.
that would be a step in the right direction. But having said that, what once again we'd like to say is, there is a problem. You want to hide it. Boeing wants to hide it. Do whatever you want, but at least let me know that this problem exists. Give me some kind of checklist that I can quickly follow in case that happened to my airplane. So in the
Yeah.
interim, at least give me this so that I have a chance. Otherwise, you're giving me no chance. You will put my transcript also tomorrow, and everybody is going to have a field day with that. So now,
Yeah.
again, acknowledge that you have a problem. Unless you acknowledge that you have a problem, you cannot get a solution to it. So firstly, acknowledge the problem. Thereafter, we'll try and quick fix at least a interim solution before we take a radical step.
I think that's very rational. And again, Captain Amit Singh, the idea is never to create panic among the flying public. We always try and be very proportionate in what we suggest. But I think it's just been galling to see dead pilots blamed, one of them accused of a suicide murder mission, mass murder mission. His father saying it hurt like hell for him to hear that. And that's what led him at the age of 91, with his son gone, to fight in the Supreme Court at this age. As I said, you're one of the petitioners. I'm giving you the closing words, sir. Couple of things you'd expect from the regulator, from the AIB and the government at this point.
Well, the AIB has to be in the driver's seat, and they have to come out with a statement, as you said. That is in the interest of public confidence. The regulator needs to understand, as written in their own manuals, doctrine of public trust, which means
Yeah.
the regulations are owned by the people and given to the regulator for governance, for their own safety. So they need to know what are they doing for their safety. How many audits have happened after every accident and special audits? Where are the
Yeah.
reports? Where does the problem lie? People need to know. So that is what transparency is. Like Japan Airlines is the only airlines in the world. Open the website. There's a link, safety. You can see the number of accidents happened with the airline.
Yeah.
There is transparency. They have nothing to hide. They said this is what we are, and we have to improve. So unless, as Sam said, unless you acknowledge, you cannot improve. You keep on hiding.
Okay, gentlemen, we leave it there. Just for anybody who's just tuning in, an incident reported by a pilot operating an Air India Dreamliner 7878 from London to Bangalore has shed new light on the Air India 171 crash. The incident involves the pilot finding that the fuel control switch gave initial problems in locking and was moving on its own from run to cut-off position. Finally, he was able to, of course, bring the plane safely. I have to keep stressing that so as to not cause alarm. And nothing happened to anybody. The plane reached Bangalore safely. However, the fact that the fuel control switch on this particular aircraft, same model as Air India 171 that crashed last June, the fact that the fuel control switch has moved on their own has shed, as both Captain Singh and Captain Thomas have told us, completely new light on the direction in which the probe into the crash was moving. It has offered concrete technical evidence that the fuel control switches can have problems locking, and this becomes imperative because of a smear campaign without any evidence that we've seen that Captain Sumit Sabharwal deliberately moved these switches to crash the plane. Now that we know that these switches can move on their own, have problems locking, it's technical evidence, and as Captain Singh and Captain Thomas say, the AAIB looking into this crash must come forward and say that they have acknowledged this new information and they must tell us what they're going to do with this information. And in the meantime, I'm sure the Supreme Court would also be very interested in this hard new evidence. Thank you to Captain Amit Singh and Captain Thomas and to our audience. And as we promised you, we will keep reporting every dimension of this aviation crisis because aviation safety is a public interest issue. It's not an issue just for nerds and AV geeks. And that's what we all have to understand. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Take care and see you soon. Thank you. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.